We're now going to look at the general properties of nucleophilic substitution reactions. We're then going to turn to the two specific nucleophilic substitution reactions that we've studied in great detail. So first of all, nucleophilic substitution reactions are somewhat different from the rest of the chemical reactions that we're going to study later in this course. For one thing, they're very general. So one of the challenges of the nucleophilic substitution reaction is that it does not use one set of reagents. There's many different reagents that have similar properties, and we're sort of expected to recognize that a particular reagent over an arrow would fall into this group of reagents that does nucleophilic substitution. This makes it hard to memorize, unlike most of the observed reactions that we're going to discuss later. Instead, what we have to learn is the pattern and the general characteristics, and then attempt to recognize that when presented. The nucleophilic substitution reactions are themselves unique reactions that are used for specific types of structural changes, but also many of the key elements of nucleophilic substitution reactions are going to appear again as part of other chemical reactions. So they're like a building block to understand a much larger portion of organic chemistry. And finally, one of the most challenging aspects of nucleophilic substitution reactions is that they occur under very similar conditions, and there are competing reactions. So one challenge just to begin with is to figure out which nucleophilic substitution reaction is favored, or is it one of the competing reactions. This is a representation of a general nucleophilic substitution reaction. This would be the overall observed reaction that we would see in the laboratory. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with something that we're going to call the substrate. It's effectively the reactant, although technically both the species over the arrow and the species here on the left are reactants. And we could write them in reverse order and it would still be representing a nucleophilic substitution reaction. The substrate is the organic part of the reactant, the part that contains the carbon. Furthermore, the substrate is going to have one defining characteristic, and that is it is going to have an sp3 hybridized carbon with something called a leaving group attached. We're going to talk about what leaving groups are in a little bit. We're then, when we represent this reaction, typically going to draw a reaction arrow, and over the arrow we're going to write a species that will be the nucleophile. Now, nucleophiles, as we discussed earlier, are species that make a bond using either a lone pair of electrons or a pair of pi electrons. In the overall reaction then, what we see is the substrate loses the leaving group, and the leaving group is replaced by a bond to the nucleophile. So at the end of the reaction, the leaving group is detached from the substrate and it's present in the reaction mixture. Most of the time, we will not write the leaving group as part of our description of the reaction. It will be considered a byproduct of the reaction and it will be discarded. So to summarize then, in a nucleophilic substitution, the nucleophile replaces a leaving group on a tetrahedral sp3 hybridized carbon. If we look at this reaction then, we can see that we've defined several new terms. The substrate is going to be the organic reactant in a nucleophilic substitution, or later on, an elimination reaction. which is one of the competing reactions. The substrate must contain a leaving group, and that leaving group must be attached to an sp3 hybridized carbon, a tetrahedral carbon. The leaving group is a group that is removed, or you could say leaves, because it's called a leaving group, from the substrate in a nucleophilic substitution, or again, elimination reaction. It breaks the bond that it has to a carbon, and it takes the pair of electrons from that bond when it leaves. A nucleophile is a species that has a lone pair or a pi bond and uses the lone pair to make a bond to an atom. Finally then, a base. So we've already used and learned the term base. In a Bronsted-Lowry sense, a base is a species that makes a bond to a hydrogen plus, to a proton. Well, it turns out that bases and nucleophiles are the same thing. The difference is a base is a species that makes a bond to a proton, a hydrogen plus. A nucleophile is the same exact species, but it makes a bond to a carbon. So really the base and the nucleophile are identical in terms of their structure and their formula. What differs is what their actions are. Leaving groups make the nucleophilic substitution reactions possible. A substrate must have a leaving group attached in order to be able to do nucleophilic substitution. When we look at what a leaving group does, it basically leaves or breaks a bond to the substrate molecule. And when it does that, it takes a pair of electrons with it. So in order to function as a leaving group, the leaving group must be able to stabilize the electron density that they take away when they leave. This is very similar to what we saw with conjugate bases in our discussion of acid-base strength. So we can use the pKa table to begin to understand leaving groups. Specifically, what we're going to see is that these groups in the conjugate base column of the pKa table are leaving groups up to a point. So essentially, when we talked about conjugate bases, we said that the weaker the conjugate base, the higher it was up on this table, the more capable it was of stabilizing that increased electron density. It turns out that the better a leaving group is at stabilizing electron density, the better it is as a leaving group. So what we see then is the weak conjugate bases on our pKa table are also excellent leaving groups. We are going to see very often the halides, iodide, bromide, and chloride acting as leaving groups in our reactions because we can see that they are among the weakest conjugate bases. In fact, leaving group reactivity is inversely related to the base strength. The weaker the base strength of the group, the more reactive it will be as a leaving group. As mentioned then, halogen ions, or halide ions, iodide, bromide, are among the weakest bases, and they are the most common leaving groups. However, there are other important leaving groups, including what we call sulfate esters, which we'll explore in a later chapter, but these are related to sulfuric acid, and so HSO4, hydrogen sulfate ion, would be a good example of something similar to them. And if we look, water is also a very weak conjugate base, and we're going to see in some circumstances we can make water a leaving group. In contrast, if we look at the other things that are typically attached to carbon atoms in a molecule, specifically carbon groups and hydrogens, we can see that these are among the very strongest bases. And therefore, carbon groups and hydrogens will never be leaving groups. This is why we need to specifically call out our leaving group in our chemical reaction.